We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors, where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast, Wake Up Aligned. Rather than be here with Tom Owen, I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Todd Osborne. My name is Dr. Shannon McMurtry, and I am your host. Dr. Todd, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing well.
Well, you look good. Sounds like you're getting over the same stuff that I'm getting over.
Yeah, haven't been sick, just violently healthy for the last few days.
Violently healthy. How's that working for you, Dr. Todd?
I think I'm going to get through it. I was questionable, and day to day, as they would say in the baseball world, I'm day to day. But I think today I see some light at the end of the tunnel, and as long as it's not a train coming, I'm going to be good.
Well, if nothing else, the damage done to our voices makes for very good radio voices. So
absolutely.
We should be in rare form.
Yeah,
today.
We can sing some Barry White later or something.
There
you go.
You do that, I'll back it up. Dr. Todd, we've got monthly focuses that we do inside of AMC Aligned, and we also release those on our podcast. I know that you're aware of that. You brought a message recently on attitude, and we wanted to talk today about attitude. And, a lot of people think they know what attitude is, or they have a good one. So I'm hoping that you can shed some light on that. But I'm going to let you run with it and, start it where you want to go. I may have some questions as you run, but what would you like to share with the listening audience about attitude today?
Well, I'll do my best to bring what I can, and anything you want me to fill in some blanks on, you let me know. But what I talked to the group I was with recently about was just the fact of, there's four main principles that we know if we have those, we're going to be successful in practice and in life in general. And the four things are procedures, concepts, attitude, and action. Mm-hmm. And we obviously want to have the best procedures that we can have and have those polished to be able to implement them correctly. And everyone knows you're never going to outgrow your concepts. So you have to constantly be growing your concepts. And action, you can have all the knowledge in the world, all the procedures, all the great concepts, but if you don't take any action, you never see the results or the consequences of those actions. Sure. And you may see consequences of non-action. Mm-hmm. And I love Dr. Owen. He used to always say, thought never did anything. He just thought he did. And out of those four, procedures, concepts, attitude, and action, the most important is attitude. And as I told them the other day in class, it really comes down to this, whether I'm hiring a new team member or an associate, I'm going to teach them the procedures. I'm going to help build their concepts. And obviously I want somebody that's going to take action, or maybe somebody I have to push to take action. But ultimately it comes down to how I'm going to judge whether they are going to get a chance on my team or not is their attitude. Okay. And that's where it comes down for me. And obviously, I looked at attitude. I looked it up in the dictionary on my Google machine, as you would say, Dr. Shannon. And it comes over as a feeling or opinion about something or someone, or a way of behaving caused by this feeling or opinion. But then it goes on down, there's several definitions, and it talks about position of the aircraft. Mm-hmm. And of course, as you and I know, our beloved Dr. Owen was big into flying. He was a pilot, and he used to talk about attitude determines your altitude. And of course, that is true not only in aviation, but that is true in life and in our businesses. Our attitude determines that altitude, and that's the pitch attitude, I should say, determine the altitude. That's what the horizon.
Sure.
And it's by the state you're in or what you're being measured by. Either that pitch attitude is going up, or down, going lower than the horizon. And then also you have your bank attitude on each side, left and right. Mm-hmm. So that's the way you turn. You tip up, bank attitude up on the right, you're going to turn to the left, and vice versa. And I thought that was interesting when I was reading it, because I think we always just consider our attitude and the altitude, it's either up or down. But I thought it was interesting that all the storms that come at us in life, all the things we get from living in this broken world, sometimes, we can have the greatest attitude in the world, but sometimes we have to bank around that.
Sure, absolutely.
And there's people and situations that you go, you know what? I'm going to keep my attitude going up, but I'm going to have to bank around this one a little bit, or avoid certain things so that I can keep my altitude gaining. And so, from the chiropractic perspective, another definition in there was a mental position or posture.
Oh, okay.
Based on fact or state. And I thought that's interesting as a chiropractor, that attitude can be looked at as a mental posture. And so I think when we really think about that, you would understand that, because you walk in and you see somebody that's, and we say, oh man, they had an attitude. Right. Well, that typically means they had a bad attitude if we say they had an attitude. True, yeah. I usually don't see somebody that's all jovial and positive and go, man, they had an attitude. But a negative attitude, and we see that, and it's a posturing, and you can see it, you can feel it when you walk in a room, right? Whether that's a great attitude, a positive attitude or not. And so I told a funny story that I like to tell on this about the positive attitude. And it's a story about there was this ancient king, and he had a best friend growing up. And as they grew up, they were best of friends, did everything together. And as the king took reign, when it was his turn to take reign, of course, this best friend became his regent or personal advisor, personal assistant for everything. And as the story goes, this best friend of his had the greatest attitude of anyone who's ever lived. And no matter what happened, he said, "This is good." And I mean, the worst thing in the world, a hurricane comes through and wipes out the village, and he says, "This is good." And so, after a while, when you're around somebody like that, there's certain times that can start to actually kind of grate on you a little bit. Yeah. So anyways, as the story goes, they were going out hunting, and this was in the day of the old flintlocks. They had to load the powder in, and it was the friend's, his personal assistant's job to get all of the firearms ready and loaded, ready to go. And as they're out hunting, the king asks for a gun. He hands him a gun, and boom, and something goes wrong and blows the king's thumb off. And so the friend said, "This is good." And that was just all the king could take. And even though he was his best friend for life, he threw him in the dungeon and was just letting him rot in there. And years later, the king went out hunting again, and he was out hunting, and lo and behold, he was captured by a tribe of cannibals. And they took the king back to the village, and they had him, tied up, and they were going through their ritual. And all of a sudden, one of the natives, the cannibals, noticed that his thumb was missing. Well, they were very superstitious, and it would be a bad omen to eat anyone who wasn't whole. Oh, okay. So they turned the king loose and let him go. And the king said, "Oh my gosh, this is great, actually, that my thumb got blown off. And here I've had my best friend in the dungeon." So he went back and went down and said, "Let him out of there." And he goes, I'm apologizing to you. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry I kept you in jail." And his friend said, "No, this is good." And the king goes, "How in the world could you say your best friend put you in a dungeon and kept you there for years, and you said this is good? And he goes, yes, because if I hadn't been in the dungeon, I would have been hunting with you, and I'm whole. So sometimes we have to keep that positive attitude, not even knowing, right? And the Bible said there will be trials of many kinds. And, you know, and another verse says, you know, God's weaving everything together for good. And so many times it is difficult in this world to keep our attitudes up. But the biggest factor about attitude that I have learned or been taught is the fact that it's your choice. Mm. You get to choose every day what your attitude's going to be. And in fact, it's about the only true choice you get in life, because things are going to happen. Things are going to come at you. Things are going to, you know, not be Care Bears and rainbows all the time. But what's your attitude going to be about those things, and how you respond to them? And you know, my kids growing up, I would have loved to created the perfect world for my kids, right? We all would, gosh, if we could just create a perfect world for them, nothing bad ever happens to them. They never get sick. They never have any accidents or injuries, and they can marry the perfect spouse and those type of things. And obviously that's not a promise any of us can make. But I had to teach them the fact then that, you know what, there's only one thing in the world you get to choose, and that's your attitude, how you're going to respond to things. And we produce attitude from our thinking. Mm-hmm. What we think about, our inner thoughts, our self-talk, that's what creates our attitude. So you can change your attitude. Oh, sure. Obviously. And, you know, we talk about doing your affirmations and things of that nature, and that helps create attitude, right? With what we're doing in life. I think to illustrate that, Dr. Owen had a funny that talked about, my mother-in-law drove my new Cadillac over the cliff. You know, it's I'm kind of torn about that. That's right, kind of torn. You can look at that one way or the other, right? It's right as you choose it. Exactly. And you know, it comes down to controlling your mind, controlling your thinking, controlling your thoughts, because that's what ultimately is going to change your attitude. And I've got a quote that I love, and it says, if you don't choose it, someone or something will choose it for you. Mm. And isn't that the truth? The world is trying to create attitudes for everybody. So you've got to realize that you have the right. It's yours. And no one else has the right to, you know, create your attitude unless you allow it. I think on that, the world will choose your attitude for you. I think we can agree that that is almost always going to be a negative or a bad attitude. They're going to force you into, you know, this political issue against that person, and it's always going to be contentious and anger and bitterness. And I mean, that's the attitude that you get from the world. Absolutely. And I think in today's world, you know, it's always been that way, but we just have more access to it now than ever before in the digital world. And so, you know, we all carry our NC 365s, you know, negative connotations, 365 days a year. And, you know, whatever it is, from digital news to Facebook to whatever, people are doing things to try to create attitudes on there. Sure. And it used to be that maybe we would watch more comedy and things of that nature that would try to create some kind of a uplifting attitude. And it's even, I guess, developed now into where even comedy can't be comedy for everybody anymore. So back to it. it really comes down to your decision and your ability to be able to control your thinking. And, controlling your thoughts, that's habits. Paul Meyer says, attitudes are nothing more than habits of thoughts, and habits can be acquired. And an action repeated becomes an attitude realized.
Give us that quote one more time, please.
Okay. Paul Meyer, he says, attitudes are nothing more than habits of thoughts, and habits can be acquired. An action repeated becomes an attitude realized.
Nice.
And so I think that's what we, have to think about. And I think attitudes, some people have a natural tendency towards a good attitude from whatever their upbringing or whatever's gotten them to their point in life. And maybe others have had that negative attitude, but that's just like anything else. Any other habit, we can change it, but that has to be replaced with another habit. And that is obviously having a positive attitude. And that takes work sometimes.
Yes, it does.
And I think it's also something that, who was it? Napoleon Hill. He was talking about, I can't remember if it was positive attitude or goals, whatever it was, but he said it's like bathing. We recommend it daily. And so maybe that was positive mental attitude and working on that he would talk about. And so I think it's the same way with our attitudes, because as we go through life, things are going to come at you that give you the ability to get down and get depressed about and have a poor attitude. And, and sometimes that's just going to happen, but how quickly can you come out of that and change that for the better?
Yeah, that's why I like that analogy of the attitude and the plane definition, because the plane, it doesn't say that you're always going to be flying through blue skies and perfect conditions, whatever. There may be storms and thunder clouds, and you don't want to just ride through those, fly through those. You want to try to go around if you can. And if you're going through a bad season in your life and you don't have the option to go around, you're going to have to go through that. Right. And that will wear on you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's going to be bumps and turbulence,
Sure.
Just because you have a positive attitude, not everything's going to be absolutely, sunshine and perfect weather all the time. And you're going to have to get through that. But it seems to me, in my experiences in life, it's a lot better going through them with a good attitude
Sure.
than a poor attitude.
Sure.
And you do get back what you put out there, right? And Proverbs 23:7 says, "For as a man thinketh, so is he." And so what we put out there, that's essentially what we get. And another story, about the desert. In the morning in the desert, a vulture takes off, and he's going out looking for death and decay. The hummingbird wakes up, and he's going out looking for life and that life-giving nectar. And guess what? They both find exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that's just a great analogy when, your attitude is positive, and I think good things are going to happen. Generally, good things will happen. You looking for the other? Definitely there. Like our old one, Dr. Rowan, and whether you say you can or you can't, you're exactly right.
Yep.
And that's what it comes down to with that. And, we do have to control that. Affirmations, we talk about writing down the negative things or the lies that come against us. And we change that and realize that that's, coming from the enemy. And what's the truth? What does God say about us? What do other people say about us that our potential is? And, 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, "Take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ." And so, we thought, this is a new principle. This is a new thing out there, right? No, it's been around a while, but you have to take those thoughts captive and make it obedient to Christ. Well, what does Christ say about that thought? And would he agree with that, or does his words say something different about us and that. So when we're working on our attitude, we have to do this because it means gaining control over what you think about yourself and your life. And just recently, I've been watching on Netflix. If you're a golfer, there's a new series. It's called Full Swing. And they essentially followed several of the players on the PGA Tour through a season. And it's really fun for me being a golf nut that it gets behind the scenes, because we all see them play on TV and that, but it gets behind the scenes, and maybe you're at their home, but they're really answering those questions and really putting out there what their thought processes are, from, Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth and John Rahm, and then they had Brooks Koepka on there, and he was one that really, really shocked me of where his level of thinking has become. And another one was Joel Damon. And Joel Damon's not a household name on tour. Most of the other ones that they had on there, people know. And but Joel Damon has been a journeyman on the PGA Tour, and his caddy, others around him, even some of the top players in the world are like, man, he is one of the most talented players out there. But he doesn't believe it. And even his self-talk on his interviews, he's like, look, I'm fine doing what I do. I know I'm not going to be winning a bunch of majors. I know I'm not going to be a legacy. When I'm done playing golf, nobody's going to remember my name, that type of thing. And I thought, man, here's a guy that's so talented, and the people around him see that. But until, just what we're talking about, until he takes the attitude that, hey, I'm a top 10 player in the world, he's never going to see the fruits of that when he's out there. And in fact, they went through, it was one of the majors, I can't remember if it was the US Open, but he was leading into the third day. And then all of a sudden, and I think he did finally, he finished top 10 or something like that.
Which is his attitude.
Exactly. And it was just like, after I had heard him speak on that, I didn't remember this from watching it. And lo and behold, there it was. You just knew at some point, he knew at some point, yeah, this is going to all fold on me. And sure enough, it did. So those are just, examples. Your life will always move in the direction of your strongest thoughts. And that was just an example of his strongest thoughts were that I probably can't win this thing. I probably shouldn't win this thing, whatever he had in his head in there. And he couldn't do that. And it just reminds me too that, we will go out and say, go to the gym to exercise muscles, and we'll lift weights. And in order, we want to build our biceps up, we're going to have to do those curls, right? And so we're going to do those and do them multiple times over and over and over. And I think our mental fitness is the same. Sure. I think we think, well, I read this one book on positive mental attitude, or I've
got it now.
I've got it now. I went to this seminar and
I worked out one time years ago. Exactly. I'm fine today.
And so it's something I think we have to work on a daily basis. Yeah. And even when we get to a level of fitness, you have to stay fit, right? There's no coasting uphill. You're either going up or you're rolling back down. You can't sit there. So I think it's something that we need to realize, that it's something that we have to constantly exercise our mind, our thoughts, and that's obviously what feeds our attitude, and practice having a good attitude. Scott Hamilton, who some of us older people remember, some of you younger ones out there are like, who the heck is that? But he was one of the U.S. skaters that as a kid we'd watch in the Olympics and that. And he's got an interesting quote out there, and he says this: the only disability in life is a bad attitude. And that's so true. Another story that I tell on attitude, just from my own experience, was that back years ago, we used to have boot camp till late on Sunday afternoon. And so I just happened to be in Illinois at the time, Central Illinois, and most of the boot camps were in Atlanta, or if I'd come down to Dr. Sweat's seminars, those were in Atlanta. And we had a little regional airport 30 minutes from me. Mm-hmm. And AirTran, if people remember AirTran, before Southwest bought them out, they had flights that went directly from Bloomington to Atlanta. So it was this perfect situation for me. And they had a few flights home on Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon. I think the first one was at 4:30, and there's no way I could ever make it for that one. And then they had one that was like maybe 7 o'clock, and then the last one was at 10 o'clock. And so I always had to book the 10 o'clock because I was never quite sure how soon I would get there. But I always, if I could get there, it was back in the day where you could actually go on standby, right, and typically they would get you on. So this one particular Sunday night, I'd gotten to the airport a little bit early, and I'm like, oh man, it would be great to get home a few hours early. Got to see patients on Monday morning. And so I went to the gate, and as I walked up there, Sunday night in Atlanta, it's packed and there's hundreds of people. All the seats are filled in that gate area, and they had just loaded this plane. So I was just getting there in the nick of time. I walk up to the gate agent, and there's one lady in front of me. And as I walk up, the lady in front of me is just berating this gate agent. Ooh. And she's going, I got bumped from the last flight, and they told me they'd get me on this flight, and this is ridiculous, and I should have a seat assigned on there. And she was just going off. And this poor gate agent is just standing there, and she keeps going, ma'am, I have to go on and do my seat check and count, and then I'll let you know. Just let me go on and do that, and I'll let you know. And this lady wasn't having it, and she thought her name should be on the itinerary, and she just, well, this is ridiculous, and she just goes stomping off and left the gate area.
Okay.
So I was behind their line, and I'm going, okay, and not getting on this flight, and so this gate agent says, how can I help you, sir? And I said, ma'am, you've got enough troubles. I was going to try to get on this flight. I'm on the later one, but you know what? I'm fine. I'll go find a ball game to watch, and I'll just hang out and do the 10 o'clock flight. She goes, give me just a second. Go have a seat over there. Let me go on and do my seat count. And so I go over there, and I was kind of like, well, that's okay. There's football on tonight. I'll go watch a football game or whatever, and hang out, get something to eat. And so, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was, goes by. And then she comes out, and that little secret door that they only have control of, for sure, and you can't get through there. She doesn't come out and make any announcement on the PA. She opens that door a crack, sticks her head out, points at me, and just
gives
me, come on in here. And almost like, be quiet about it. And the funny part was that all these people had been watching this. They're sitting in there, and this is theater for them, entertainment at the airport, right? And the whole crowd goes, "Ooh!" Because this other gal had stomped off, and that would have been her seat. But all it came down to, and really, it probably should have still been her seat. But what was the difference? It was the attitude that I approached this gate agent with. And so, does that always spell out you're going to get the positive favor and all that? No, but nonetheless, I still made that gate agent's day better, even if she didn't have a seat for me, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's what it really comes down to. And so, your attitude comes from your thinking. Dr. Owen, still one of my favorite audios of all time is controlling your thinking or controlling your life. Mm-hmm. And that's what it really comes down to. You have control of that. You, as he always told the old story, people say, I can't control it. Yeah, you can. You and the wife are having a big knockdown, drag out and going, and the preacher knocks on the door. And all of a sudden, you can control it because you've made a conscious decision to control it instead of just saying, I'm just going to let my brain go wherever it wants to go. And so we have to consider our thoughts and what we're doing. And Dr. Owen, another one, stinking attitude gets stinking results. And so, a winning attitude gets winning results. And not always perfect, but you'll get a lot more wins with a winning attitude than you ever will with a stinking attitude.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. I know that the listener is going to benefit from that. I wanted to add something since you're mentioning Dr. Owen. He taught us years ago, you and me, that there was one common denominator among all these people that would come and try to, hey, help me with my practice. Can you help me out? Whatever. And that one common denominator, he called it the winning attitude. And the winning attitude is defined as somebody that says, you tell me what to do and I will make it happen. And what's funny about that is, Dr. Tara and I were talking just recently about who is our ideal candidate for help out there and what are those qualities, what are those characteristics. And we talked for, 10 or 15 minutes identifying all these things. And guess what we came down to? Right back to the winning attitude. Mm-hmm. And it's still so important that when I'm pairing a mentor to a new member or doing a transfer between mentors or whatever, if I tell that new member, this person has a winning attitude, it's almost like, yep, go ahead and sign me up. I'm ready to work with them. Right. Mm-hmm. That's all that the person, they don't need to know. Like, are they good personality, bad technique? What size of their market? Or, got the winning attitude? We got a chance with this one. So
absolutely. The person that's going to do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
And, I've hired and fired by that over the years. Mm-hmm. And the associates that I've gotten, the good ones, I haven't done that perfect every time, but when they've had that good attitude or that winning attitude, guess what? They've done really well.
Right.
And, an example of that is the associate that now owns my office in Illinois. When I stepped out of active practice up there and sold it to him, I just seen him here recently. I stopped by up there, and he's still doing a great job up there. But he called me out of the blue. Here I am. I'm a Palmer graduate. I'm doing Atlas orthogonal upper cervical work. Kind of at that time, I guess I would have been considered a pretty straight chiropractor. And this kid from National calls me and says his last quarter, he can go out and shadow and he's got all of his requirements done for graduation and he'd like to come shadow my practice. And I was like, now how in the world does somebody like that come in? He doesn't even know what, he thinks Atlas is called C1 and, didn't have the philosophy, didn't have anything technique wise that I would be looking for to come in and emulate in my practice. But he came in and I still remember, he goes, listen, I just wanted to get out and get with people because he goes, I know I have no clue what I'm doing. And I want to learn and do whatever it takes to learn how to run a successful practice. And I went, by golly, this kid's got a shot.
Yep.
He's got a shot. And I remember bringing him to first AMC meeting.
Sure.
And he went home on fire. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, it wasn't on fire because he'd learned all the principles and protocols. He got philosophy out of it.
Right.
Because he had been so neglected from having philosophy, and he was just super lit up and had the attitude that whatever it takes to learn to do this technique and to learn the AMC principles and procedures, he was going to do that. And here he is 18, 19 years later, still running that practice up there in Illinois and doing a great job of it. So that's just an example that I give of somebody that came in and had the attitude, not necessarily all those other accolades of being the smartest in the class and being the top technique person and that type of thing. But the attitude that he had has allowed him to be very, very successful in chiropractic practice.
Well, I really do appreciate you joining us today. I know that we're up against the clock, but this attitude subject, the listener can go as far and as deep as they want to with it. This should be their introductory. This should be their reminder. This shouldn't be the end of the journey. Like you were saying, they want those big muscles. They go have to stick with it regularly and consistently. And I think the same is true for this. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Oz.
I appreciate that. And I'll just leave them with the quote that I left the class with the other day. And that is this: get up in the morning and ask yourself this question every day. Does everything change my attitude, or does my attitude change everything? And if you will go with that, you'll be all right.
Very good. I hope you have found this to be inspiring, motivating, and empowering. That is our purpose for being here today. We look forward to you joining us on the next episode. God bless. Follow our show. You can share it with friends, of course, and we'd love for you to contact us at mailbag@amcfamily.com. In addition, you're always invited to attend or join us at a summit. Of course, registration is required, and we would love for you to check out the loads of free content we provide to social media every single week. Until next time.